In this demo, I'll be showing you how result can be utilized with functions that may possibly fail. For this demo program, I'll be writing a program that simulates a menu, and the menu will have multiple choices. The user will be able to enter some text that corresponds to one of the choices, and if it fails, then the user will be notified the reason it failed. Internally, we're going to use an enumeration for each menu choice, and we will utilize a function that returns a result in order to transform the user input into the enumeration. To get started, I'll create the enumeration. I'll call it menu choice. We'll have a few options here. We'll have main menu, start, and quit. I then am going to create a function called getChoice, and it will take in some user input as a string slice. We will then return a result, and the results, if it is okay, it will be a menu choice, and if we get an error, it will be a string. If you'll recall, the result enumeration consists of two variants. There is an OK variant and an error variant. So the first type here is the OK variant, and the second type is the error variant. This means that this function needs to return either an OK or an error. The menu choice return value will be wrapped in an OK, and the string return value will be wrapped in an error. I'm now going to implement the functionality needed to map the string into a menu choice. The user types in main menu, they will get an OK with a menu choice of main menu. I'm now going to implement the rest of the functionality. So here we are matching on the user input. If they input main menu, they'll get an OK with the main menu choice. And if they enter start, they'll get the start choice. If they enter quit, they'll get the quit choice. Next, we need to cover the situation where the user enters something else besides these three here. To do so, we use the underscore, which is just a catch-all. So the underscore will cover anything besides these three. And we use an underscore because we're just ignoring the input. We don't really care in this program what the input is. We just know we only want these three, and anything else is garbage. So that captures it and ignores the value. To return the error, we do ERR because that's the name of the variant in the result for errors. I'm then going to input a quick message for the user or programmer indicating to them that their menu choice was not found. I then type in toOwned to create an owned string because we need to have an owned string for our result, and that should complete this function. Now remember, the OK variant, these all map to this first right here, this first type. And as you can see, all of these are a menu choice, which corresponds to the type here, which is a menu choice enumeration. The last one, the error variant, is a string, and that corresponds to the second type, which can easily be printed out later on if we need to do so. I'm going to go ahead and implement the rest of the functionality. I'm also going to derive functionality on the menu choice enumeration. That way we can easily print out the data. When we derive debug functionality on an enumeration or structure, it allows us to print out these variants on the terminal without having to manually match on each one. It'll automatically print for us. If we hop down here, we can just do a print line, and I'll just put choice equals debug print, and we'll put the choice in. We're starting off with the main menu as the first choice. So when the function gets called, this match arm should be hit, and we should get an OK back with the main menu variant of the menu choice. Let's run this and see what we get. As we can see, we have the choice is equal to the main menu variant, and that's wrapped within an OK. I'm going to write an additional function that can be used just to print out the menu choice. So I'll call it print choice. It will take in a choice, and we'll just borrow a menu choice. No return value is needed. We'll do a print line and do choice equals, and then have the choice. Now I'm going to comment out this function and we'll replace it with the print choice function. Now, what happened when we printed out the choice originally, we have an OK choice. So it's a result instead of just the main menu. If we take a look at our print choice function, we'll see that it requires a menu choice, but our get choice function returns a result, which may be a menu choice, but it may also be a string, which represents an error. So let's run this and we'll just see what the compiler tells us. Here we have a mismatched types error, and it's telling us that when we try to borrow choice, that they expect a menu choice because our function takes a menu choice, but instead we have a result. And that's expected because our function here returns a result instead of just a menu choice. So we need to get access to this menu choice in order to properly utilize this function. To do so, we can use a match expression. So we can match on the choice, and I'll add some type annotations here so we don't forget that this is actually a result. Remember that the underscore means anything and ignore it. So we're just going to let the compiler figure out that this is a string because we already defined it as a string here. So it's able to figure out the proper type for that. We'll match on this choice, and if it's OK, we will then call our print choice function. And now we have access to the choice. I'll rename this just for clarity. We'll call this inner choice. And if there's an error, we'll print it out. What we're doing here is we have our result, which may be a menu choice or some type of error. We then are matching on that result. So the OK variant and error variant are both covered. Those are the only ones that are available in results. If the function was called successfully, we'll get the OK variant. We then access the inner data, which is the menu choice, and then we can call our print choice function, since the inner data here is a menu choice, which corresponds to the proper data needed to call that function. This is how Rust is able to guarantee that your programs run properly, because this menu choice data is wrapped within a result. And if you try to use it without getting the inner value, you get a compiler error, as we just saw. So in order to account for that, we have to match on the choice to get the inner data. Then we can call the function with our inner data. However, if there's an error, we'll then get our error data and just print out that there's an error, and we'll be unable to call the print choice function because the data is error data. So let's run this program again and we'll see what we get. Now we can see that our choice is the main menu. We have gotten rid of the results portion here, and now we just simply have the main menu information that we need to run the existing functionality, which is print choice. I'll change this to something that's not present in our current options. So we'll just type in leave instead of quit, and we'll see what we get. We get an error, and the error indicates that the menu choice was not found. And that corresponds to our error here. And in this case, the get choice will be an error. So it'll be a result with error data. And since it's an error, this won't get executed, and it instead prints out that we have an error. There's actually a shorter way to access data instead of having to match on the result. What we can do is use what's called a question mark operator, and that's automatically going to handle some things for us. I'm going to create a new function that utilizes the question mark operator so I can demonstrate how it works. I'm going to call this function pick choice, and it will take a string input and it will return a result. And the OK variant is going to be nothing. So if you want to return nothing from a function, you can use what's called the unit type, and that is just open and close parentheses. So that's called the unit type, and that just represents nothing. So this function, for example, it doesn't return anything here. So it implicitly returns this unit type. So sometimes you need to specify that you want to return that type, And in this case, we need to do so because the result requires both the OK and the error type. So the OK type is just going to be nothing, and the error type will be a string. I'm then going to make a choice. So the choice will be get choice, and it'll take the input. Then we're going to use the question mark right here. What this is doing is we're calling the get choice function, just like we did here. And instead of returning a results like it did before, the question mark will automatically perform a match operation. And what'll happen is if the result is an OK variant, then that inner data will get placed into the choice. And if it's the error variant, then the error is going to get automatically returned as the error variance from the function. So it'll be a result error if it's an error, and if it's not an error, then we'll just get the inner data automatically. This is useful because we can chain multiple function calls using the question mark, even though all of them may return results and could possibly fail. So if any one of them fails, then the function will just return automatically, and we don't have to use a bunch of match blocks in order to check each one. I'll add some type annotations here so we know what we're working with. So this is a menu choice type. Next, we can just do a print choice, and we'll borrow the choice. And finally, we'll return an OK. Remember that the OK variant of the result just means everything's fine. And I'm returning nothing, which is just the open parentheses, close parentheses, which is known as the unit type. Now down in our main function, I'm going to just change all this. This will just be called pick choice, and we'll try it with start. Let's run this program and see what we get. As we can see, our choice equals start. To walk through, we call our pick choice function with the start data that's placed here as the user input. We then create a choice, which is the menu choice type, by calling get choice. The get choice function expects a borrowed string, which is here as the input. So that will then come over here. We then match on it as we did before and return a result. Now the question mark will evaluate, is this result an OK or is it an error? So it's going to check. Now if it's an error, then it's just going to return the results and it's going to return the error variant. If it's the OK type, then the inner data, which is the menu choice, will then just get returned into the choice, and we can easily access the choice with other functionality as we just did here. Let's try this with a menu option that is not present. I'll type in end. We'll give this a variable name. We'll call it choice, and then we'll do a print line. This here is always going to be a result because this pick choice function always returns a result. Now this result only has either nothing or an error. So if we send it a menu choice of end, we should get an error back because end is not covered in our match. Let's give it a go. And here our choice value is error, menu choice not found, because the question mark automatically returned the results and then this never got executed. So it's impossible to execute this line of code unless this function is successfully ran. Working with results is a little more complicated than some of the other things we've been working with. However, once you get the hang of using question marks within your code, it becomes quite natural to just call a bunch of functions that return results using the question mark operator. And then when you're done, you just check at the end to see if it failed or not. This concludes the demo on the result type. I'll see you in the next presentation.